Between the 6th and 10th centuries, the Indian subcontinent presents a specific conflict between its politics and its economy. We see kingdoms crumble and rebuild in a blur of warfare, yet underneath that cycle, the economy is active and everyday society is running with precision. As this map shows, the era of massive centralized authority, like the old Gupta Empire, was over. A power vacuum settled over the subcontinent, filled by dozens of regional dynasties, whose borders shifted with almost every generation. Below the kings sat the Samantas, subordinate rulers who controlled vast local territories. As these figures grew wider and heavier within the political hierarchy, they began to squeeze the authority of the kings above them. Kings relied on these Samantas to provide troops and collect taxes, but that loyalty was conditional. If a ruler showed military weakness, a strong Samanta would strike, overthrowing their master to seize the throne for themselves. The Rashtrakutas are the clearest example of this fluidity. They were once subordinate feudatories to the Chalukyas, but they eventually overthrew their masters and signaled their new dominance by carving the massive Kailashnatha temple out of a single hillside. Since high-level politics was a violent cycle of replacement, the continuity of Indian society relied on structures closer to the ground. To find that stability, we have to look away from the royal courts and out into the rural countryside, where most of the population lived. Kings tried to secure control over these decentralized areas by issuing land grants. Giving away tax-free land to religious institutions and loyal Samantas was a calculated political tool used to project royal authority into distant regions. These grants pushed farming into wild, uncultivated territories, expanding the total agricultural output. However, they also created a class of local landholders, which sometimes left the peasants who tilled the earth vulnerable to exploitation. This weathered stone wall carries the record of how communities managed these systems. The 10th century Uttarameru inscription details how villages managed their own affairs, often entirely independent of the central crown. The text etched here lays out strict protocols for local governance. It describes how citizens elected local headmen and formed specialized committees called sabhas, which handled everything from water supply to local justice. While emperors were busy replacing one another, these local village assemblies provided an organized continuity for the people doing the daily work. This local society was funded by two economic forces: state-supported agriculture and expansive maritime trade. Agriculture thrived on the back of massive engineering, like this stone-stepped tank. Local rulers and village assemblies constructed vast networks of these reservoirs and wells to ensure their lands consistently produced a surplus. Tracing these trade routes shows where that surplus went. The Indian subcontinent was wired into the global economy, linking the west coast to Iran and East Africa, and the east coast to Southeast Asia and China. Powerful merchant guilds navigated these shipping lanes. Operating as independent economic engines, they owned fleets of ships and used their profits to fund local temples and community infrastructure. These ancient silver coins offer physical evidence of the wealth flowing through these coastal trade hubs. They were cosmopolitan markets, where Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain locals conducted business alongside Christian, Muslim, and Jewish merchants. This combination of infrastructure and trade guilds allowed the economy to survive even when a royal house fell. This resolves the paradox of the shifting map. During this period, the strength of Indian civilization became decentralized. Kings and their Samantas provided the military umbrella, but the foundation of society was maintained by self-governing village assemblies, innovative farmers, and cosmopolitan merchant guilds. The enduring legacy of these 4 centuries is that while rulers were temporary, local organization survived. Consider the systems that outlasted the kings. How did local self-government contribute to the resilience of Indian society during this period?